But yeah, I was very fortunate to play football for a living for a few years. I would argue I wasn't really that good, Belle. Okay, but the problem is I think I didn't know I was not that good, so I thought I was good, which got me to where I was. Other people might say different things, but I was a young footballer. Apart from learning to play football, I learned discipline, I think, which I wasn't expecting to learn from being a young apprentice footballer. Discipline was probably the most important life skill that I was taught. Equality is making sure that everybody has the same starting point, has the same opportunities. But I think in terms of the equality world, it's moved from equality to a word called equity. So regardless of people, the differences in people's lives, there should be no barriers. So we don't want to make people taller, so they can see over the fence. You want to remove the fence so they can see. So that's the difference between equality and equity.
Good morning, Sean. Thank you for agreeing to come onto the podcast.
Morning, Sam. How you doing?
I'm good. You?
Yeah, really good, mate. Really good. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. If we could just start with the early life, please. Could you just give a quick introduction to who you are now, your background, what you are doing now, and some of your work history, please?
Wow, that's a lot of questions there to start off with, Sam. I've got to be honest. Who I am now, my name is Sean. Okay, Sean Wharton. I'm the father of 6 children. I'm the grandfather of 11 grandchildren. I used to earn a living from sport. I used to work in social care. I've done many jobs. I played football, did lots of things, Sam, and now I'm sort of an anti-racist educator. So I go around the whole of the UK talking about equality as an advocate for positive social change for my company, No Boundaries.
And where did you go to school, and what impact did that have on you to what you are doing now?
My family originate from St. Kitts in the Caribbean, Sam, they do. And my parents came to this country as part of the Windrush generation, which I do a lot of in terms of assemblies and events and so on. I'm actually going down to meet the Home Office later on today, funny enough, which is why we're doing this session now, and I have to go down to Cardiff. And I've also I'm in the Home Office next week. But the answer to your question is my family were raised in Newport. As a child, I was raised in Newport, just on the outskirts of Newport. I like to call it Lower Celtic Manor. Sam, I don't know whether you know Lower Celtic Manor, but it's actually England, an estate on the outskirts of Newport. So yeah, that's where I was raised. And I went to Hartridge High School. It's now called Cwmbran High. They sort of changed the name, but the estate remains the same.
And are there any values from your family and your early life that you still hold close to you now?
Any barriers?
Yeah.
Yes, Ben. I mean, obviously, as part of the Windrush generation, my parents came to this country. They were met by signs saying, no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. It was a very difficult time for people from the Caribbean to experience. They thought they were coming to riches, but they were treated badly because of their skin color. So my parents, they worked hard in order for my siblings, my older sibling Vida, then Lynette, then Valerie, then Baz, and myself, to have the life that we lead today. And you could argue that we've all been successful in our different ways. But that's because of the drive that my parents had when they came to this country to make sure that we had a good life and that we could be the best we could possibly be.
Moving on to coaching and football management. How did you get into playing, and how did you end up signing for the Sunderland, and how did your football career work out for you?
What a question. Now, it's interesting to say that. I very rarely mention football. I don't know why. Maybe I should. But with the line of work I do, Belle, sometimes, I could spend 3 hours talking about equality, and then I ask if anybody has a question. They say football, and I haven't mentioned football once. But yeah, I was very fortunate to play football for a living for a few years. I would argue I wasn't really that good, Belle. Okay, but the problem is I think I didn't know I was not that good, so I thought I was good, which got me to where I was. Other people might say different things, but I was a young young footballer, my brother, sort of my dad, used to play football with me in the street, and I became a better footballer by playing against better kids as part of my conniving, my upbringing, my surroundings, my background. So football is very much part of my life, playing in the street, putting my jacket down, using it as goals, and then playing against the next streets. That's what we used to do back in the day. One street to play against the other street, and then once you beat that street, you play against the other street. It was great. So you learned your football skills, the basic skills of being strong, being fast, shooting from anywhere. And then I sort of got good at it to a degree, but I was also good at baseball. I loved baseball. I loved cricket. I loved rugby. So all those games I was half decent at. But football seemed to be the one which sort of took my interest. I was pushed towards by school.
Yeah.
School pushed me into playing football. But then there was a particular scout then, and he pushed me towards being a young footballer. He used to take me down to Cardiff City, and when I was 12, and then we used to train, and then it went from there. Then I signed for Cardiff as a schoolboy. Then I did okay. Then I played for Wales schoolboys. And I was the first black person to play for Wales schoolboys at the age of 14. I played a year younger, so I was 14, playing with 15s. I was 15. I played that year as well. And then I went and played youth football for Cardiff City, and then the managers changed. So the manager of Cardiff City at the time, Bell, got a job at Sunderland. So that took me up to Sunderland, and I was the only black player there at the apprentice. I was the first black apprentice to be signed for Sunderland Football Club. And that was tough, because you might think you're good in Newport, but when you go to a place like Sunderland and a big club like that, you're joining forces with so many other good footballers, and they're all good. They're all good at where they come from, and you all come together being good. So it was tough. It was tough, it was some tough times. Had a lot of battles, forget the football, a lot of fights amongst each other, which is unfortunate, getting the pecking order. It was a cruel time as an apprentice, just cleaned every day. They were always picking on different people at the time. It was inevitably going to be your turn. And then when that ended, then I came back and I played semi-professional football, and I won the league with Cwmbran Town. I played in Cwmbran, and then naturally I went into management because of my leadership skills.
Very nice. How did you get into football coaching following your retirement, and how does the managing differ to coaching?
It's really interesting question, that, Belle, because it's a lot of people ask me that question, and I think at some point I was very lucky that I was sort of captain nearly every team I played for. I don't know why. But I did. And I think somebody at some point saw some sort of skills which would mean I could lead. And so I naturally, when I stopped playing, fell into being an assistant manager for a chap called Brian Coyne, who was managing Cwmbran Town in the Welsh Premier League. So I was playing there when Brian Coyne took over from Tony Wilcox, who was an icon in Cwmbran Town Football Club. And we won the league in the first Welsh Premier League. We won the league with Tony Wilcox. Unfortunately, he passed away, and Brian Coyne took over, and I was still at the club. And he needed some help, so he asked me to help him. No, I don't know why he asked me, but he did. And then I become a coach. And it was very hard, Belle, because you almost have to go from messing about with the players as a player to being, hang on a minute, no, you can't do that, you can't do this. So that was a really difficult time. I think a lot of people find that transition hard, because you still want to be part of the group, but you have to be separate because you have to show leadership skills and so on. But I did it. That transition was okay from a coach. And then naturally Brian Coyne left, and then I was in a good position then to be manager. And I learned from Brian Coyne in the way he spoke, the way he behaved. And I learned from Tony Wilcox, the way he behaved and spoke to people. I learned from George Wood, great manager, Scottish guy, managed in the Cardiff, the way he behaved. When I was in Cwmbran, I learned from John Relish, one of the great managers. So I took all the skills from my previous managers, Laurie McMenemy, Frank Burrows, Alan Durbin, Dennis Smith. I took all those skills from different managers and used it and created my own way.
What was the biggest challenge you faced while being a football coach or player, and how did you cope with that?
I think other than competing with your peers to get into a team, okay, it has to be racism better. The amount of racism I experienced in football as a young professional, Not even on the pitch, in the stands, not even in the stands, in the towns, just walking around. So in every single sphere of my life as a young footballer, I experienced racism. And then in semi-professional, did it again, had experience of racism there. As a manager, experienced it there. As an individual, experienced it there. So it has to be racism, and not only receiving racism, it's how the impact it has on you afterwards.
Yeah.
Because it's a lifelong impact. So yeah, that even today, I'm thinking about what happened to me when I was 15, and I'm 56. So it has a long-term impact, racism, the impact of racism. So.
What skills are required to be a football manager, and how demanding could the role be?
Listening. I think listening. As a high-profile manager, I'm not quite sure because I've never done that. I probably never will, but who knows, one day. But I think communication is key. How you communicate with individuals. Similar skills to your head teacher or your teachers. If you get a teacher that can't communicate, they're going to struggle. If you have a football manager who cannot communicate, they will struggle. And I think knowing your individuals that you're spending time with, knowing them as first and foremost as people, not footballers, knowing their interests, knowing their family, knowing their jobs, knowing their likes, their dislikes. Getting some individuals is key in relation to encouraging that individual to be the best they can possibly be, and do as good as they can on the football field. But as more than just football, just as good people.
What pressure and scrutiny can you face as a football manager, and how do managers stay in the game for so long, considering that they receive abuse, pressure, and the mental and physical demands that come with the roles?
It is pressure because it's, for the game, you've got it's every day, if you it depends what level you're managing, but you work from a Saturday, when you look at game day +1, game day -1, game day -4, -3, -2, up to training sessions and planning your sessions throughout the day and throughout the week. In semi-professional league, you're training, you play on a Saturday, you have a rest on a Sunday, you talk about the game on a Monday, you train on a Tuesday, you talk about training on a Wednesday, you train on a Thursday, and then Friday you're planning for the game on a Saturday. And that's for 8 months. So then it's tough. It's not just turning up and having a session. And the pressure is balancing your work life, because obviously if you're semi-professional, you're working. If you're professional, that is your life. And it absorbs your life. Balancing your work life with your personal life, your family, your wife, your extended family, and then obviously taking phone calls from different managers. Different players want to come and join, players want to leave, players want more money, players want less money. All those things you have to balance in the world of being a football manager and training. And then that's not even about winning. If you're winning, great. If you're not winning, then it's even more pressure because you've got pressure to get 3 points. You want to keep your job. People will start criticizing you. People start questioning your formations, your decisions. But that's the love of it, because it's exciting. That drives people. That come on, then what's next? Let's do it. So yeah, for some people as a manager, that drives you, that passion, that drive to be the best you can possibly be. You know what I mean, and learn from the last result, and maybe be better next week. How can we be better next week? What do we need to do? How are we going to do it? Who do we need to do it with? So yeah.
And what is the difference between a manager and a leader? And how do you create how did you create followership from your players and teams?
Manager and leader is really good. I look at leadership first. Some leaders need to be led, Sam. Yeah, and some leaders lead through control. I think it's finding out which leader you are. Some would argue that people are born leaders. Some would argue that leadership comes because you were made a leader. So it really depends which sort of leadership person that you are. Managers overall, managers present good leadership skills. They oversee, they overlook, they ensure that things are right. They don't even have to do it. They lead through presence sometimes. When the manager's not happy, if you've instilled those good qualities and good skills in you as a leader. So I would like to think that I'm both. I can manage players, I can manage lifestyles and personalities and game situations. You can manage the situation on the pitch, you can manage the situation off the pitch. And as a leader, it's about how you present yourself. What you do, you turn up on time. You're the first one to get there. You're the last one to leave. How do you dress? Do you present yourself properly? Do you speak properly? Do you listen? Most importantly, do you hear? Crucially, do you understand the difference, the difficulties that happens within a life of a footballer, a young footballer? Do you understand the transitions of young players coming out of the game as professional, coming out the same professional game, or trying to get into the professional game? So it's having a holistic approach, to working with individuals and communicating in order to get the best you can possibly get out of the individuals you're spending time with.
And when you're meeting with a board for budgets and to develop your plans and vision, how is this scrutinised, and how do you get the board to provide the support that you're looking for?
You have to have regular contacts. You understand that it costs money. For example, in a semi-professional league, it could cost £500 before you even kick the football in a day. And that means that the referee the pitch could be £300-400. And if you've got floodlights, maybe £300 for the pitch if it's floodlights. The referee, another £100, the linesman, another £100, and that's before you even kick the ball. So you've got to find a place where that money's going to come from. Luckily, some clubs have got good sponsors. Some clubs have a number of sponsors. Some clubs have one sponsor, an individual who loves football and wants to contribute to it. And this is semi-professional. In a professional league, that's not the issue, because one jersey costs you £125. One jersey, and you've got 45,000 fans going every week. And many people have jerseys, so the money is generated through jerseys and tickets. With the semi-professional league, Sam, is not so much. You might get some players get sponsored by individuals, but more often than not, you have to do fundraising events. But you have a committee. So the answer to your question is a committee generally looks at the running of a football club, looks at what it needs, what it would like, but what it can afford. So the budgets are generally based on the affordability of the group of people that's funding that club.
And how do you create purpose, the why and the motivation within your team to push for results within a performance and results-driven business such as football?
I mean, every player wants to win, and that comes without saying. That's a natural ability. That's a human trait, isn't it? You want to win. Whatever you do, you want to win. I understand not everybody can win. Okay, but in the football world, I think majority of people that go and play at 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 12 o'clock, whatever time it is they play, 7:30 in the night, you could argue that they want to win. So that desire is already instilled in the individuals. All you have to do as a manager is try and find a way of how we're going to win. What do you need to do? And sometimes, as I said, footballers they're just people. They're just members of the community. So they're going to have off days. They're going to have bad days in work. They're going to have fallout with their partner. Yeah, they're going to have they're going to be rushing from here to there. They would have traveled like maybe sometimes 2 hours to get to a game. So as a manager, you understand the different issues potentially which comes with every single different player. Some players might be living around the corner from the ground. Some players might be working nights and come in, sleeping working all night, sleep then and come to a game. Some players might not work at all. Some players might be working on bricklayers. Some players might be teachers, running around all day after children, bricklaying, standing out in the sun. Some players might be scaffolders. So you have to understand the individuals and the players and what they bring to the table, what they brought with them prior to the training and prior to match days, and try and get them, to put that to one side. They're here now. We've got 6-7 months of football. Let's try and win every single game we can win.
And would you ever step back into managing a team, or are you happy to be away from managing and doing what you're doing now?
I'm doing lots. I love my family, Sam. As I said at the beginning, I've got a huge family. I love spending time with my family. I do miss the changing room. I have to be honest. I do miss being on the grass as well. Speaking to players, communicating with players. I do help out on occasions at the local club. One of my mates is taking over the managerial role. But I enjoy watching my sons play football as well. They play. One plays locally and one plays a little bit further afar. But I enjoy my grandchildren. I enjoy my children. I enjoy going for bike rides with my son. I enjoy going for a beard cut with my grandson, who is a barber. And I just enjoy having choice. So never say never. I might do, but I am doing lots of other things at the moment, as you know, which is taking up some time. So who knows what's around the corner.
And can it be difficult to stay within the game of football management for the long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Because as I said earlier, it takes up all your time. It takes up every single day, even if you're not playing. Sam, you're talking about it, or somebody wants to come and join your team, and then you've got to balance your wife or your partner and your children and your work. So that has a expiry date, I think, for many. You know what I mean? And obviously it is a results-driven game. So if you're not getting results, then ultimately, you could be moved on, even if it's not through choice, which happens quite a lot. And you just take it on the chin and you move on. Hopefully you get another job if you want to. If you're not, then that's fine. But yeah, it is. I think it has got an expiry date because it is so demanding of you as an individual.
And why is it important to manage people in different ways to ensure you can provide that support for members of your team and those that are under your guidance?
Because everybody brings different skills. Age. You might have a younger player, you might have an older player, an experienced player. That older experienced player might not train as much as a young player. They might train more, but sometimes their life experiences are different. You might have somebody in university, you might have somebody in school. You know what I mean? So, the comparison to somebody's just like a 17, 18-year-old player in the first team in school and somebody who has 2 or 3 children who works all day and has got a home to pay for, they're different. So you have to treat people totally different based on what they bring to the team, but understand the difference, but also try and get the best out of both individuals in order to be part of a team which is hopefully going to be successful. I think that's the difference. That's the key. You cannot treat everybody the same.
And is it
Sorry, mate.
Is it difficult to maintain high standards all year round, all the games, all the training, when all the players were around? And is it beneficial to allow players to have some breathing space and sometimes compromise those high standards to realign the team and allow those players to be people?
Absolutely. I think camaraderie is a sign of is key, and a sign of a winning team is camaraderie. The changing room is good. There's lots of WhatsApp groups. The WhatsApp groups is something which I've always been keen to keep alive. Balancing fun with the daily sort of regimes of training sessions and expectations of the players. Having regular meals, going out for meals, going to bowling days, having sort of speedway days, having go-kart days. So yeah, all those things during the season is vitally important for players to have some time out, do things together as players, and also spend time with their families. Yeah, some player might have 3 children and they want to take their children out for Halloween, trick or treating on Halloween day. It's fine. Go and do that.
And what was your coaching philosophy?
Well, I was always out of possession, if that means anything to you. So my teams always work hard when they have not got the ball.
Now, moving over to running a business.
Yeah.
What was your first job and what did you learn from that job?
My first job was football. And I learned to play football. But that aside, I learned, apart from learning to play football, I learned discipline, I think, which I wasn't expecting to learn from being a young apprentice footballer. Discipline was probably the most important life skill that I was taught as a 16-year-old. Yeah, the discipline to get up on time, to make your bed, to make your food, to clean your boots, to make sure the boots are clean, to finishing your jobs, to getting home, to getting sleep, to making decisions on not going out, to the pub or to the club or to whatever it was, to have the discipline to say no, iron your clothes, make sure your clothes are smart. Everything you did, you put away, eat healthy. So discipline, it comes in many factors, but the discipline which was put into me as a young person, by the people I was surrounded with, I wasn't expecting. I was just expecting to go and play football. But it's a lot more than football.
And what is No Boundaries Training and Consultancy? What does it offer, and what is it primarily focusing on when it works with other businesses?
We are an anti-racist consultancy, so we go around lots of organisations. We've actually been to your school talking about anti-racism, okay, to individuals, to groups, to organisations. And as advocates of positive social change, we all believe that there's some injustices in the world, and one of them is the way people treat others for different reasons. Yeah, because of gypsy travellers, for example, the way they get treated, which isn't right. So let's have that discussion. Why do people treat gypsy travellers differently? If you're looking at sort of religion, what happens when people treat people badly because of their religion. And also we look about immigration, what's that about? The way people come to this country to work are treated differently. And how people are treated differently purely because of their skin color. So we look at all those 4 areas. And, some people don't like it. Some people don't want to hear it. But it means that we just have that discussion. People talk about, can you say this? And you say, well, no, you really shouldn't say that. And we say, well, why can you not say that? This is the reason why you cannot say that. Understanding history, but recognizing that, today is important as well. And moving forward is vitally important. How do we move forward? We move forward by understanding the history that comes with us and understanding how some people are made to feel different because of their culture, their nationality, their religion, or their skin color.
And where did the idea of the company come about, and how did you set up the business?
My good friend, my business partner, Sunil Patel. So we're in business together. It's our company. And No Boundaries means Sunil and myself, we love cricket. Yes, Sunil loves the Indian team, and I love the West Indian team. And obviously there are boundaries in cricket. So we want to create a space where there are no boundaries to talk. Okay, so we create that. So no boundaries. Talk about racism. We talk about equality for women. Do you know what I mean? We talk about for girls, how can we're still celebrating firsts in many aspects. The first woman to do this, the first Indian person to do that, the first black person to do that, still the first gypsy traveler to do this. So we want to create no boundaries to conversations. This is people's opportunity to say what they want. Back it up with the reasoning, but what do you think about this? And this is where this concept comes from. No Boundaries Training and Consultancy.
And how do you establish relationships with new customers, businesses, and schools to provide training and consultancy services?
Generally, it's word of mouth. I think people think that we know what we're doing. So we go around, people generally, one school then speaks to another school, clusters, as part of a cluster. And we have come to your school, and we delivered to I'm not quite sure whether there's any, the 2 of you were there, but we've come to your school and we delivered anti-racism discussions and equality discussions with you. And then the other clusters go then, so we speak to the other schools as part of that cluster. Organizations come to us because they've heard that we do some good work and good discussions. And then generally it's word of mouth. People realize that, we're pretty good at what we do. We have lived experience. I'm not telling you about somebody else's story. I'm telling you about my story, how I have felt as an individual that's experienced racism. And Sunil will do the same. His story about how he feels as being an Indian young man living in this country and how he's been made to feel. So I think people enjoy the lived experiences that we're given. It's our stories because it's relatable. And of course, the experience that we've got that we bring into the table as well. So that's what we do.
Going back to what you said about word of mouth, would you say word of mouth is the best way to get people to know what you are and what you do? Because I've spoken to many businesses recently, and I know a lot of them recommend word of mouth.
I think if you're doing something right, people will spread the word, Sam. Obviously we have a website, okay, and people can go to that. So if people want to know about this, we send them to the website. But generally, people, if you're doing something right, if you're having something done in your house, and then somebody says, "I want a new bathroom," and say, "Well, I know somebody who does a bathroom. It's Sam." So then, Sam, eventually, you will go to that bathroom. So that's generally the way the world works. People buy off people. Yeah. If we went to buy a Mercedes Benz tomorrow, You know what I mean? If we didn't like the person selling it to us, we would not buy it from him. We would go to BMW. So people buy off people, and I think people buy off us because they believe that we're providing the service which it says on the tin. We don't pretend to give something which it doesn't say on the tin. This is what you're going to get, and this is what we do.
And what are the benefits of a service-based company, and how difficult can it be to maintain high quality and consistent service, especially when you grow the company and bring new people in?
Well, I don't think we don't have any reason to bring anybody in. We're not going to do that. We have got some associates. So Sunil and myself, we own the company, and some people come in and do daily sessions for us if we have 2 or 3 different places. For example, if I have to be in Cllr with you, because you've got such a big school, myself and Sunil, but we also have to be in Cwmbran, which is next door to you, because you do a lot of work at Cwmbran, then we would send somebody else to Cwmbran. So on occasions when there's 3 events or there's 4 events, we will tap into our resources of associates, and they will come in and fill in for us. But I think consistency is key, but I also think what's very important is complacency. You know, we do refresh, we do reflect on our behavior, we do get feedback from our delivery. Some people don't like it. We talk about the reasons why they don't like it. Can we learn from what their reasons were, why they felt it wasn't as good as what they believed it was going to be? But I have to say, I would say majority of the feedback that we get is quite positive, you know, and so we look at the negativity, which is very small, because the positivity is so good. So not being complacent is key. Refreshing, updating, always reading. I'm constantly reading, updating my skills, updating my knowledge, always challenging what I'm reading too, making sure that is a cross-reference it. You know, is that true? Don't Google stuff, you know, because you're not quite sure whether you're going to get the truth. You don't know what the truth is. So reading is key. Reading is power. Education is the most important, powerful weapon that could be changing the world.
And how do you acquire feedback from the training or services that you've provided to keep developing your business whilst maintaining the purpose and standards you want, so you can keep ensuring the work keeps coming in?
Sometimes we do a QR code, so they give us feedback. Some people give us verbal feedback, but mostly there's an evaluation, and then the organizations, they gather the evaluation and they send it to us, so we can look at the evaluation and the feedback, and then we learn from the feedback. As I said, it's generally positive, but there's still some people who maybe do not believe that there should be equality in this world. So, you know, they vent their opinion in some of the feedback on occasions. But that's why we're doing it. We want to speak to people who do not believe that there should not be equality. That's the whole point of doing this, having this business, to try and change mindsets, to try and get people to think slightly differently about women, about girls, about transgender, about black people, about gypsy travelers, you know, about men, about boys, about, you know, antisocial behaviors, all those mindsets, all those stereotypes that people have. How can we get people to change their mindsets? So that's what we do.
Are you different as a leader and a manager within your own business, or compared to being a football manager?
No, because I'm driven. I'm very driven, Belle. You know, every day is a good day for me, you know, so I'm very fortunate that I woke up this morning. I always say that. I know you might smile, but some people do not wake up in the morning. So every day is a blessing for me, and I just be the best I can possibly be each day. So I am driven. I am passionate. And I just go for it. You know, I'm not afraid to fail, because I think sometimes you have to fail to learn from that difficult period and to get success. Yes, and I have had some terrible times, some horrific times, but it hasn't stopped me. You know, I get up, say, okay, that was part of my life, I move on. So that's just the way it is. And the more success you get, the more people want to criticize you. So people find critique and they critique you, and sometimes you have to really understand and get people's perspectives, because sometimes what people say is not always the truth.
What is equality, and how can companies improve equality within the workplace, and what does success equality look like?
Equality is making sure that everybody has the same starting point, has the same opportunities. But, you know, I think in terms of the equality world, it's moved from equality to a word called equity. So regardless of people, the differences in people's lives, there should be no barriers. So we don't want to make people taller, so they can see over the fence. You want to remove the fence so they can see. So that's the difference between equality and equity. So we want an equitable world, and really, where regardless of people, whether it's a woman, whether it's a man, whether it's a disability, whether it's somebody who's visually impaired, whether they're trans, whatever it is, okay, we want equity for all. Everybody should have the same starting point and not have any obstacles in front of them to reach their destination.
How can you advise and influence senior leaders to develop equality within their workplace, especially when a company may be set in their own ways?
Just do the right thing. That's all I would say. Just do the right thing. You know what I mean? What would you want for your children if you have any? Imagine always being outnumbered. Whether it's a woman and it's a pile of boys, whether you've got red hair and everybody else got blonde hair, whether you're wearing glasses, nobody else is, whatever it is, imagine always being outnumbered every single day, what that must feel like. And that's the way then that people say, okay, I get it. I didn't see it. I didn't look through other people's lenses. So looking through other people's lenses is key as part of Cwmbran, that fantastic Welsh word that we have. That area that creates your surroundings, your habitat, your lifestyle, the spiritual place, all these things. Well, imagine what it's like being outnumbered every single day. What would it be like for you?
Horrible. Can it be difficult when you have your own values and approach within your own business, and when you work with other companies, they may be reluctant to change or have their own way of doing things, where they may be bureaucracy and difficulties to push new ideas in? Sorry, I don't know how to say that word.
That's okay. Bureaucracy. Yes, absolutely. There always is. There's a massive amount of bureaucracy. But I think today, when there's so much negativity in situations, I think people want to be heard. You know what I mean? That you, Sam, you, Belle, you're the next generation. You're the future. You're the ones that's going to change things, which is why I was happy to come on this podcast. It's not going to be me. People like you, which are asking these questions and driving, the questions of organizations. It's important for people like me, who is old, to come and speak to people like you and say, you're the ones that's going to change things, for your generation and for the generations that come behind you. Yeah. So the more I can speak to young people within schools and organizations and youth clubs, as well as obviously other individuals who can change and influence policies and procedures, the better, because there is bureaucracy. People do not like change. Okay. However, people want change all the time in every aspect. I want change. Okay, here's change. Oh, I don't like it. I want the other bit. So it's just having those open and honest discussions, Belle. You know what I mean? And where people can be transparent. And if you don't like something, say, but back it up with the reasons why.
Yeah.
Why don't you like it? What is your understanding of it? Well, I watched on TikTok. Yeah, but does that make it real? What I read on Google. Yeah, but does that make it real? Well, I watched the news. Yes, but does that make it real? And it's having those conversations, where people have to really decipher what is reality and what is mistruths. Because for so many people, their lies become their truths. So how can you get that understanding of what is real in today's world? I tell you what is real, that some people are suffering because they stand out.
How much do you charge for your services when it comes to training? And are there any different training packages that you offer?
Well, I'm not charging for today, so sometimes I give it free. Okay. So it really depends. It is a business, but it's not a business where we want to make massive amounts of money, because the message that we want to get across is more important than a monetary term, monetary returns. Okay. So, the money isn't the charge isn't the important thing. The important thing is, the value of the conversation and what people like yourselves are going to take away from today's discussion. That's the most important thing. That's the value. That's the payment for us. What are people going to take away, and what are you going to do next? That's how we get paid.
Now, moving over to future plans. How and why did you become a councillor, and what do you value within your own approach to the community and supporting people?
I became a councillor. It's a long story. Okay. Two events happened. I live in a little area where where there's a field. Okay, let me rewind. It was the first event. I was driving to town, and there was a young man that had lost this car. A van had broken down, and he was walking along with his can of petrol, which was empty. Yeah. So I was driving. I was in a bit of a hurry, and I seen this van. I passed this van. I thought it's a strange place to park a van. But I saw a young individual walking with this petrol can. So in my wisdom, I stopped and I said, "Excuse me, mate, are you? Do you know where you're going?" Because he was miles away from a petrol station. So I'm looking for the petrol station. I said, "Well, you know, there's not one close." This was in Cwmbran. And I said, "I tell you what," I said, "I'll take you to a petrol station." So he said, "Oh, thank you so much." Now, I wouldn't ordinarily pick up strangers. I wouldn't advise that for anybody. Okay. However, he looked as if he'd broken down, so I chose to do this one day. And as we were driving to the petrol station, we were getting closer to town. This young man that was next to me was on his phone, and I don't know what he's doing on his phone. He was typing away on his phone. So then we approached the petrol station in Cwmbran town centre, and he said, "Oh, I haven't got any money." And I said, "Oh, right, okay." So I said, "No problem." I said, "Just fill it up and I'll pay." He said, "No way." He said, "Yes, I'll pay." Fill the petrol. He filled it up, £6-7, whatever it was. I paid, took him back up to his van. He could not thank me enough. He went into his van, put the petrol in the van, and went off. It must have been a week later. Where I live, there's a little field, and there's a school next to where I live. And it was very boggy. There's this field, and there was a van in the field, and it was stuck. It got on the field when it should not have. And this person was trying to get out of this field, couldn't get out of it. So my wife said to me, "Go and see if they're okay, Sean." So I said, "Oh, it's cold, it's wet. Do I really have to? Go and see them," she said. So I went. As I approached them, there was a young girl in there. She was pregnant, and it was a boyfriend. He accidentally went onto the field, and he shouldn't have. And they were stuck. So I got my vehicle, and I towed them out of the field, and they were very, very pleased and happy. That was 2 occasions. The same week, again, there was another little field, same field. There was this chap that had parked his car right in the middle of the field, stuck. And again, he was revving, and my wife said the same thing. "Sean, go and check." I said, "No." And she said, "What if it's one of your children, if they're stranded somewhere?" I said, "Okay, I'll go and check." So I went, and this man, he was stuck. He thought that the field, which was next to my house, was the school car park. This man was about 78, right? And it was raining, and it was lashing down. It was very dark. So I said, "Listen," he said, "he had a meeting in the school." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll tell you what, give me your keys. I will get this vehicle out. So I will walk you to your meeting." I walked him. He was obviously shaken up. So I walked him to the school, which is next door to me, and he went into his meeting. I went off, and I got my long rope. I've called a mate from across the road. I said, "Give me a hand." I said, "This chap's parked his car in this quarry." So anyway, we pulled his vehicle out. It was revving like crazy. It was soaking wet. It was tipping down with rain. It was horrific. Eventually got his car out of the field. My mate went off. I put my car back, tied the rope up, walked up, drove the car up to the school, parked in the school, walked into the meeting, knocked the door. This chap was there. "Hello, this is the man that saved me. Thank you so much." And it was a council meeting. It was a council meeting. So then they said, "We need people like you, Sean. We need people like you." And I said, "Oh, I haven't got time. Come on." And that's how I got involved in the council meeting. And my brother said to me, "You know what, Sean, with your experiences and knowledge, you have too much to offer not to share." So I find myself in positions where, why would I keep the experience and knowledge, the critique, the failures, the success to myself, when I could give it and pass on to other people, to learn from difficulties, but also success, and come out of it, hopefully, in a positive way, where I can contribute, be at the table where I can make decisions. People say, "I don't like that." I say, "Okay, what are you going to do about it?" "Nothing." Well, stop complaining. So I'm not that sort of person. If I don't like something, or if I want something to happen, get involved. So that's how I become a councillor. And I love my community, and I love the area, and I'll do exactly as much as I need to do for the area I serve and beyond.
As a councillor, do you have the plans to become a party leader, or to progress in a serious position within your party?
No, I don't. That's the answer to that. I'm happy doing what I'm doing. I'm enjoying it. I'm learning. I know it brings a different skill for me. It demands a different skill from me. But I'm learning every day, you know, from experienced people there. You know, what I will say to the two of you as young individuals, you know, never be afraid, okay, to be the best you can possibly be, and get yourself involved in decisions in areas and conversations where decisions are made. You know, because again, I will say, you are the future. You're the one that's going to change things.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years' time?
5 years' time, probably here, you know, with my grandchildren, with my great grandchildren, potentially, hopefully with as many family members as I can, and just being the best I can possibly be. You know, I just want to try and influence as many people as I can, hopefully with good health. There's no point having anything in life if you have not got good health. So the answer to that question is, I would like to see myself with good health.
If you could give any advice to anyone starting out on their career, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to fail.
How has your work and experience influenced your own children?
Wow. Hopefully, I mean, I don't think you'd have to ask my children that, to be honest, Sam, see what they say. But, you know, they all do what they do. You know, I'm very proud to have the children I have. I've got fantastic children. You know, they're all absolutely amazing. I love every single one of them to bits, and they're doing all sorts of different things, you know, in social work, Royal Mail, education, youth justice. You know, I mean, they're great. I'm very privileged to have the children I have, and you know, they're just great. I love every single one of them to bits, and their children, my grandchildren. You know, they make every day special for me.
As a former player and manager yourself, and your son Theo played football, how difficult can it be as a parent to see him go through some of the difficulties in football, that pressure, the demands, moving away from family, potential negative comments from fans and those on social media?
It's tough. It's tough. You know, Theo plays for Cllr at the moment. You know, and he had a really good season last year. He also plays for St. Kitts. Christian plays for Cwmbran. I've managed Christian. I've never managed Theo. I managed Christian at Gocha. It's tough watching your son play, because when you're managing your children and they're playing at the level they're playing at, when they get hurt, you get hurt too. Don't get me wrong. When another player gets hurt, you are hurting too. But when it's your child, you know, it's a different type of hurt, and you're worried about them. You're worried about their, instantly you go to their grandchildren, you go to their work, you know. So that's really strange when you're managing your own children, you know, particularly if they get hurt. But it's also good, you know. Yes, they both gone through difficulties in their footballing careers. They both experienced a form of racism in their footballing careers, but they both also had success in their different ways. They both won the league last year. Theo won the league for Cllr. Christian won the league for Cwmbran Town. You know what I mean?
I'll stop for a minute. There we go.
Both been successful, as of all my children, you know, but it is difficult for sport. But, you know, both of them have not depended on sport as a living. They both got full-time jobs, and they're successful in their jobs and in their life just as well as they are on the football pitch.
Now, Sean, that is all the questions we have for today. But if it's okay with you, could we go on to some quick-fire questions?
By all means.
What is your favourite food?
Caribbean food, rice and chicken and rice.
What is your favourite film?
Willy Wonka.
Favourite TV show?
Chocolate Factory. Sorry.
Favourite TV show?
Death in Paradise.
Who is your role model?
My parents.
What is your favourite book?
My favourite book would be, this isn't very quick, is it? I think at the moment it's Simon Sinek, Start With Why.
What are your non-negotiables as a manager?
Being late. Dirty
If you
boots,
could-
dirty kit.
If you could live in any country, where would it be and why?
Wales, I love it because I'm very strong Welsh, but I would also live in the Caribbean, which is St. Kitts, equally.
Yeah. If you could spend the day with anyone, passed away or alive, who would it be?
Nelson Mandela and my father, who has passed away.
Now, Sean, that's everything we have for today. So thank you for agreeing to come onto the podcast. It's been a pleasure to have you on.
Superb. Thank you both. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. Speak to you soon, sir. Take care, Belle.
And
Bye.
you.